This is part two for this little news report. It's not really even news. It's me just kind of wrapping a few articles and throwing my ideas out there. So just be honest about it. Um, I hope you guys are doing well. It's just been kind of nice to pull back from the news and stuff and just feel like everything's gonna be okay. It's not gonna be the end of the world here, and whatever happens happens. But at the same time, still being aware and cognizant. It kind of sounds pessimistic because I don't honestly see anything changing. So the way I see what I'm doing now is more just kind of a documentation of or evidence of something, like a crime scene or something. Not so much to change things, to change the world. That's what I felt like I was gonna do or I was doing, and I may have helped people, maybe change their way of thinking or altered it or got them to think about something they wouldn't normally think about. So that in that way, that was good. But as far as taking on the feeling like I'm taking on the responsibility of trying to change the world like some kind of activist, I don't feel that anymore, and it's been a huge weight off my shoulders. So anyways, I'm not going to go into a big review of the first video. You might want to watch it. Some pretty interesting points that I made in there, and it'll allow this second video to make sense, a lot better sense than if you just started watching this. I left off here though with basically talking about Ukraine and this whole thing about how it's two economic empires fighting it out using terror proxies to do it, and that's what we're seeing in Ukraine in that. And Obama funding, right? A $1 billion fund to increase U.S. military deployments to Europe. Of course, he won the Nobel Peace Prize. And it's not really Obama, it's the industries that are pushing this stuff. So, and that this is not a Cold War. That's what we were kind of getting at. This is a hot war, economic hot war. You have this dangerous Russian jet flyby. It was straight out of a movie. Technically, they had every right to let me get rid of the audio. They had every right to go and basically buzz this U.S. reconnaissance plane in this area between Russia and Japan. So they're putting the lives of U.S. crew in jeopardy. That's what they say. So symbolically, this is like, if you imagine two planes as two economic empires or whatever, or a bunch of corporations and interests being funded by you, of course, almost clipping wings. They're kind of coming to an impasse. The Russia and that type of economic empire, they want the a multipolar world, and they accuse the U.S. of wanting a unipolar world. That's what Putin actually says. It's kind of an old economic order conflicting with the new economic order. I've mentioned this, I think, in the last videos that I made, half a month ago. And I know people will disagree with me on that, but we all have, different ways that we're seeing things. I don't have all the truth. I have my opinions that are based off my perceptions of reality. And so I don't have the full particulars of all the situations on the ground there. I don't know about the Ukrainian people and what all the different factions that are on there locally, that are going on locally. So instead of trying to say what they're thinking or something like that, I just try to go from a bottom grassroots level. I try to just look, looking in from afar, from the top, aerial view, and you see just, what the hell's going on here, from a long-term view down the road. And that's why I'm kind of not too optimistic in the short term about changing the system, because I'm not really sure what people are going to replace it with. I'm not really sure if they know what direct democracy is. So it's going to take a while. I'm optimistic about the long-term future, way down the road. Because instead of just forcing people to agree with you, or forcing, through violence or force to get people to change the system or overthrow it, You know, they're going to have to learn. You know, just humanity's going to have to learn that this is not what they want. So they're going to have to suffer. They're going to have to be oppressed and do all this stuff. Representative democracy. So it's found on the principles of elected officials representing a group of people as opposed to direct democracy. All modern Western-style democracies are types of representative democracies. For example, the UK is a constitutional monarchy. Germany is a parliamentary republic. So why am I covering this? This is stuff that should, or, you know, I'm sure that you guys are aware of this. You know, it should be obvious. But this country, you know, at least the U.S. was so that, you know, popular vote didn't exist. You know, you didn't want the sheeple having the vote. You know, people without means, without capital, trying to change the system or participate in the system, right? In Switzerland, they actually do have. It's one of those rare examples. They have a pure democracy or direct democracy. So this will all lead back to the financial news that I was talking about, because, you know, as far as changing the system, I mean, you're voting for people to represent you, to represent you, that are going to care about you, and then it's just kind of funny that people are so naive to think that these people are going to just look out for their own interests, right? That's the thing if you're going to be exercising direct democracy, and all of these different people would be serving their own interests, and at least it would be, you know, you'd be honest about it. The key of that real direct democracy would be that, you know, how much do I want to exercise, or how much do I want to see what I want, as opposed to how much can we settle on, you know, how much can we settle on and agree on that will make life, you know, semi-decent for us, or that suits us locally. So that's kind of coming from the angle of, well, we have to think about on the grand scale from the Pacific to the Atlantic Ocean. I'm just talking about Americans in general. Well, we don't have to think like that. I mean, real direct democracy, most likely. I mean, this is in Switzerland. I mean, even that, it will get diluted because it's so on a grand scale. If this would actually take place on grassroots style, it would spring up, you know, in different areas, and they would all have their own different views on morals and ethics and culture. It wouldn't be on this big scale, right? I mean, you wouldn't want to do that. You know, unite all of them, because once you do that, then you dilute the actual direct democracy that's taking place locally. Anyways, I'm sorry for rambling on there, but that's why I think things aren't going to change. Voter turnout, you know, voter turnout's, you know, gone down. It's gone down because people are disenchanted or indifferent, right? Basically, the people that they voted for aren't doing what they want them to. I mean, they're never really doing what they want them to, but just a degree to which they're not doing what they want them to increases so much that people are just like, okay, well, it's obvious that these people aren't representing me anymore. And it's all about legitimizing the system. So that in order to legitimize the system and calling it democracy and packaging in that for mostly business elites, they have to have some people participate, even though, you know, it's not direct participation. So then they'll make promises and they'll throw them some goodies to keep them coming back. Kind of like the economy that we have too. They steal, and then they throw some goodies down, you know, the trickle down type economics to people. So yeah, you'll have some decent lifestyle, but at the top, you're not actually getting all of the return on your investment of energy and time. So, you know, in Africa and other places, it's weird. The U.S. and the EU actually has one of the lowest income inequality gaps. I mean, it's kind of crazy when you think about that, but that's only because the elites there are making so much money that they, you know, if they didn't, there would be some kind of actual uprising. So that's how they keep people at bay. That's how they keep them thinking that, well, it's not really worth doing anything or changing anything. I got it pretty good. It's at least I'm not, like in Africa or somewhere else, in China where they got no rights or they're just poor, right? So it keeps them content. That's why you always hear people with the sentiment of, well, what are you going to do? Yeah, it's bad. Politicians are bad. What you going to do? And so a lot of Americans they'll still participate in the economic system and the dollar and all that and that. And when the whole bailout was going out, that was just the repercussions of heists and scams that were going on before. So it hasn't stopped. So a lot of people were against the bailout. They, oh yeah, what are we going to do? A lot of people were like, don't, government, don't give those, don't bail them out. But these same people are out spending mostly on credit, and they're able to do this because of what the banking elite did, which is they just kept the system going, the financial system, and so people are all quiet now, right? And they're spending and they're confident in the system. The little bit of news that I have been paying attention to, I haven't necessarily agreed with everything that this website is putting out there, their ideas, and I don't agree with this whole article, but it's just kind of documenting America's insatiable demand for more expensive cars, larger homes, and bigger debts. So again, learn your lesson. Nothing's going to change short term. Speaking of short term or short term memory, you have in Seattle, they're hiking the minimum wage to $15 an hour. And what they did was that they gave companies 3 to 7 years to start paying them this rate. So this is when all of the automation will be taking place, right? Robots, service workers, cashiers, much of the U.S. economy for regular people, not regular people, you know what I mean, though, just lower income people. They're not really going to be needed anymore. They're called a high-risk category, 47%, but it's good for politics. Not going to really be there hasn't been some kind of philosophical debate by people, because people, again, they're not really participating in any of the decision-making process, so they're just going to get what they get. The bailout, when things get bad again, when they can't find jobs, they're going to start rabble, banging their pots and pans, and it will have been too late by then. So this is what they did. They bought time, right? The bankers bought time, keep the system going. It doesn't fix the financial crisis, it makes the next one worse. So again, that's a lot of truth to that. So that's kind of what this economic system that we have. Call it corporatism, economic fascism, but it's where the government favors big corporations over individual people. Really, the people that hold the capital over the people that do the labor, right? I might have to bust into a third video, but this is the American dream, right? The American dream is out of reach. So this is the American dream. The dream is, instead of old feudalism, which is a lot of it was based off bloodlines, now anybody, any color, any religion, whatever, can attain as much capital as they possibly want. As far as exploiting others, other people's welfare, well, who gives a flying crap, right? That's the American dream. So the American dream is actually still taking place. It's just, as we get more down the road, it's just going to be the end result of the original design of it. So the American dream still exists. It's just out of reach for people who just don't have enough of that money or enough credit to be able to do something like build a big corporation, because the competition's so stiff anyways. And part of the American dream is taking on a 30-year mortgage for they're lower quality nowadays, but a home, right? One that you could just, like the Amish, they just erect one or whatever, and it's done. No payments in that. So, but they're willing to sacrifice, get a second job, deferring for retirement and stuff like that. 52% had to make at least one major sacrifice in order to cover their rent. So half Americans can't afford their house. That's a big moneymaker for the elites. This is what people participate in, the racket. So this is the evolution of the system here. The wealth divide never wider. The average CO to worker pay ratio in 2012 was about 350 to 1. And check this out. Yet the divide in pay does not exemplify the exact loss in a livable standard of living for the ordinary person, the ordinary worker. So keeping them content. Please join me in part 3. Thank you.